everyone. I'm Miranda. I'm with UFCW 1189 in Minneapolis. I work at the Wedge Co-op. It's a grocery store. I'm like a barista, kind of. Um, so we're gonna start off with what a steward does. So if you have any ideas of responsibilities a steward has, you can type it in the chat, raise your hand, or unmute yourself.
Advocates for their coworkers.
Someone in the chat says stewards protect the rights of workers. And somebody else said protect others. Yep. A steward helps coworkers understand the contract. Very true. Represents the union to the workers. Upholds the contract. File grievances. Yep. Sit in if an employee is written up. Yep. So like in a meeting with management, disciplinary meetings. Help build solidarity with fellow union members. Very true. Yeah. Conduit of information and support to the workers and the union. Yeah, these are all really good answers. So what does a steward do? Steward does do all of those responsibilities that we just listed off. So a steward enforces the contract, communicates information, helps file grievances, protects members from unfair discipline, solves problems, and most importantly, organizes. And we will get into all of these more specifically as we get through the training. We're going to dive into it more. So what makes a good steward? Just beyond the basic responsibilities, what do you think are good qualities of a good shop steward? So once again, raise your hand, type it in the chat, or go ahead and unmute yourself and just shout out some answers, please. Listens. Yep. Yeah, it's really important that I think what's the 70-30 ratio? You should be listening 70% of the time and talking 30% of the time. You really need to be tr building trust with your coworkers and making sure that they know that you're hearing them. You need to be present, be fair and considerate, approachable and knowledgeable, not hiding in their respective department. That's true. It's where I am is I always call it my cage, just a little sad, but I have like a counter and I have a little gate and I don't get to leave very often. So it is really hard to leave my department pretty often. But when I can, I try to make the most out of it. Being trustworthy, making connections, mobilizes coworkers, educating new employees on the rights of the contract, building courage. Yeah, these are all really good answers.
It's also, I think, important that you're a person that's outgoing, but also has a holistic understanding of the shop that you're working in.
Mm.
Being a shop steward is a lot like being a almost like a chaplain or like a AA sponsor sometimes, where you know that, this person has this problem and this person has this problem, and you can see the patterns of what's going on with management and think of ways to get people together for collective action and how to solve that.
A good steward builds unity with coworkers. So yeah, building that trust with your coworkers, making sure that they know that you hear them. Remain active in the union whenever and however possible. Always looking for ways to get people engaged, get more people roped in to be an active member. Share information with coworkers. That could be anything within your shop or from the local or anything relevant. Just always making sure that you're in communication with people. No one enforce the contract. You don't have to be an expert of your contract, but you should be pretty familiar with it and always trying to learn more about it. And then making sure that you're enforcing it as well. And maintain a good work record. So you do need to be a good worker. You do need to make sure your coworkers know that you work hard. You need to make sure management sees that you're a good worker. You cannot give management an excuse to discipline you because chances are, as a steward, you're probably a troublemaker and that might annoy them and they might be looking for something to discipline you on, which is not great. So do not give them an easy excuse to discipline you. Make them work for it if they're going to. So yeah, thank you everybody for all your answers. I'm going to pass it over to Caitlin and she's going to lead us into the next section here.
Thank you so much, Miranda and Samantha, for kicking us off and for helping lead this training. So my name is Caitlin. I am one of our two national organizers with Essential Workers for Democracy. So along with Liam, I'm our support staff for our organization. And today I'm going to be walking us through thinking about stewards as organizers. So many of you may have received steward training from your local, and you might have gotten maybe a packet about your responsibilities and things that you're allowed to do. But we are rarely encouraged to think about your role as a steward as a primary job of an organizer, that the main thing you're supposed to be doing as a steward is organize your coworkers. And so today we're going to talk through how to think of yourself as a steward, as an organizer. And if you're not a steward on this call and you're, someone who maybe wants to become a steward, or you were a steward, but you were removed, or you transferred stores, whatever it may be, you are also an organizer, or you can also be an organizer at your store. You don't have to have the official title of steward to move your coworkers into action. And so part of what we're going to talk about today is what it looks like to move your coworkers into action in the first place. So when we think about our workplace, your workplace, the vast majority, maybe 99.9% of workplaces, are dictatorships of the boss. The boss controls almost 100% of what happens to you on the job. And maybe their boss is controlling what they have to tell you to do. But somewhere, some boss is being a dictator. They're dictating every single thing that should happen in the store, why it should happen this way. Most often, the reason why things happen the way they do is to cut costs and to boost the profits of the people at the top. And so their goal is to make the workplace structured and organized in the most effective way for them to make profits and to squeeze as much work out of the workers for as little money as humanly possible. So the workplace in what we might call an unorganized workplace, or when you're first starting out, is a dictatorship of the boss. But it is already organized. It's just organized in service of whoever's in charge. And so our job as labor organizers, as union activists, is to try to reorganize your workplace so that the workers are in charge. So that the boss is so scared of the power of the union that they know that they can't make up a random rule one day and start implementing new changes, or come up with a new dress code policy, or suddenly change the way that things are run because everyone is going to revolt. And so we want the boss to be scared of the workers a little bit. And so we want to organize ourselves. And you can imagine that if you, let's say you're this person, you're the little star. So as an organizer, you're this little star, and you're going to start having conversations with your coworkers. One of the dots is bigger than the other dots. And that bigger dot represents what we would call an organic workplace leader. So every workplace has leaders. This is rule number one of organizing. Your workplace already has leaders. Your workplace already has leaders, whether you like it or not. And they may be people that you don't agree with or you don't get along with. But every workplace has organic leaders. These are people that might organize potlucks. They might organize drinks after work. They might be the person that goes around and gets everyone to sign the birthday card when it's someone's birthday. They might organize a carpool to work, or they might just be somebody that everyone listens to. People respect them. They care what they have to say. And most importantly, the biggest kind of tell of who's a leader is that they have followers. So a leader has followers. And this big dot here represents a leader. So if you're the organizer, what you want to do is start to identify the leaders in your workplace. They are already out there. It's up to you to figure out who they are and start bringing them into union action. Many great leaders in your workplace may be using their organizing chops to do random things, like organize a baseball league or a soccer team. And so as an organizer, you want to identify the people that are already great leaders and see what you can do to pull those people into using their skills for union action. So as the organizer, you're going to identify leaders, and these little dots on the outside represent all of the other members that might be following that leader. And eventually your goal is to recruit these leaders into a committee to be in contact with each other around a common goal. That goal might be something like winning a new contract if you're in contract negotiations. It might be something much smaller, like enforcing a contract issue that the boss is constantly violating. Another way to think about this is the bullseye. Some of you may have seen this before. This comes from a book called Secrets of a Successful Organizer, which is published by an organization called Labor Notes. I highly recommend the book if you're a steward or just someone looking to get more involved in union activity. And so we can think about our workplace and all of our coworkers as organized in something like a bullseye. And for most people, when you're starting out, where would you say the vast majority of your coworkers would be? Would they be in the core of the most active union members? Would they be in the activist layer of like pretty active union members that show up to meetings and participate? Would they be in the supporters layer where they might come to one or two meetings, but they'll definitely sign your petition? Or would they fall into the disengaged or hostile layers? Okay, see, Ari in the chat says disengaged. Lori says disengaged. Kat says disengaged or hostile. Zach says disengaged. Right, so for a lot of people, this layer of disengaged members is going to be really, really big. And the core and the activists and even the supporters is going to be pretty small. And that might be true whether you've had a union in your store for a really long time. It could also be true if you are newly formed in your union and your union's just kind of starting out and growing. And some people in the chat I see are also saying a couple people are saying supporters, which is awesome. Hopefully we can hear from you in how you turn people from disengaged to supporters. Francis says they were disengaged, they're supporters now. Christina said half are supporters, the other are disengaged, right? So maybe started out with a huge layer of disengaged people. And now some people in the chat are saying maybe we started with almost everybody being disengaged, but now we've got more people in the supporters layer, which is awesome. And that's exactly what we're trying to do with organizing is pull people closer to the center of the bullseye. We know that we're not going to get 100% of our store to be so active, the most active union members, the people that are organizing meetings, they're taking on every workplace issue, they're filing grievances, they're talking to, their rep, they're talking to each other, they're attending stewards trainings on after work or on the weekends. So we just can't expect that all of our coworkers are ever going to be in the core. But what we can do is try to identify the leaders that we can pull into the core that will bring people along with them. They may not bring them all the way into the core, but they might bring them into the activist layer or the supporters layer. And so if you're starting out with disengaged, all you need is really one other person to start organizing with you here in the core, and think about a couple other people that each of you can bring into the activist layer. And those people in the activist layer can bring a couple more people into the supporters layer, and so on and so on. So the goal is that with every action we take, whether that's, a grievance that we file that we're asking someone to sign on to as a witness, or a petition that we're asking someone to sign and add their signature to our petition, we're thinking about how can we move every person one ring closer to the center of the bullseye from where they are now. If the bullseye is confusing to you or it doesn't quite make sense, another really helpful way, at least for me to think about this, is a seesaw. So when you're starting out, the balance of power in your workplace is tipped in favor of the boss. And when we're doing workplace organizing or union organizing, what we're really interested in is power. Who has power and who has the ability to wield their power to get what they want. And when we're starting out in a workplace, your boss has power. That's the main person with power. They have the power to change your schedule. They have the power to fire people, intimidate people, all sorts of things, right? And so the boss has a lot of power when you're first starting out, and the scale is tipped in their favor when the vast majority of people in your workplace are either in the disengaged or the hostile camp. And it's tipped away from you and from the union, or from building the union. So you might be finding yourself on this call all the way over here. You don't have anyone else with you in the core. You don't really have anyone else in the activist layer. Maybe you've got a couple of supporters and a lot of disengaged people. And our goal is to tip the scales over so that more people are in the core, the activist and the supporters layers than disengaged and hostile. And again, you're never going to end up with all of these people all the way over here in the core. All it takes is just a handful, maybe 5 people in your store to be part of the core, the activist layer, to pull a lot of supporters along. So to go back to how we might think about making decisions about how to deal with workplace issues or grievances that come up on the job if you're a steward, we don't just want to think about, okay, can we fix this problem or what's the best way to fix the problem? We also want to be asking ourselves, how can we build the union? How does this help us build a stronger union that gets more members involved? So this is a worksheet that actually comes from the official UFCW Stewards Handbook, which you can find online, about how to map your store to figure out how you can mobilize and organize your coworkers to solve problems. So first, you might want to know how many members are in the work area. So if it's a problem that's contained to one department, how many members are in that department? How many people work on that particular shift or in that particular area? What's the issue? Who cares about it? How many people are affected by the issue? Are there members that are already involved with the issue, people that already care about it? And are there key members, especially leaders, who would need to get involved in order for us to win? So if there's an issue that's only affecting the deli department, for example, you might want to identify, so how many people work in the deli? What's the problem? Who cares about this already? But how many people total are affected by this? Is it just the people in the deli? Does it spill over to the bakery? Does it affect the people in Doug? How many people are already involved in the issue? And then are there people that we need to get involved in order to win? So, the person in the deli that everybody likes and respects and listens to, they've been nonchalant about the problem. They don't care about it that much. So we need to have a conversation with them. And then some other things to think about if the issue can increase visibility and participation in the union, improve representation of underrepresented groups or people that maybe have been more quiet or less likely to participate in union activity. And can it be used to organize or to mobilize around? And then finally, you want to think about the decision makers. So where are we actually targeting our energy? Who are the decision makers in management? Are there other decision makers that should be involved, like the public? And what is our actual goal? Every organizing plan needs a goal so that you know whether or not you reached it or you didn't reach it. And if you start out with a really vague sense of what you might want to happen, but not a clear picture of like, this is our goal, this is how we're going to reach it, it's going to be really challenging for you and your coworkers to feel like you know when you've accomplished something. And part of bringing people closer to the center of the bullseye is being able to give people tasks that we can accomplish together and demonstrate the power of the union. So now we've kind of talked about how to move people into action, but what kind of action are we trying to get them to do? So in other words, what is our goal? And another way to say this is, what does a well-organized workplace look like? We probably know what a unorganized or disorganized workplace looks like, where the boss is wreaking havoc on everything, doing whatever they want, bullying people, intimidating people, changing the schedule, underscheduling people, violating seniority. That's maybe a poorly organized workplace where we're not enforcing the contract. What would a well-organized workplace look like? If people want to type in the chat, maybe you can raise your hand and we'll call on you, or you can unmute yourself. Elaine has a really good one that says members help and take care of each other. I think another word for this might be solidarity. Members have solidarity with one another. They're looking out for each other. That's really good. What else?
When when everyone in the workplace has an issue, it's able to be organized and brought to management and sort of scare them off of hurting us or violating our right.
Patrick says a good sign is if people are willing to wear union merch. People are like wearing union pins or union swag on the job. That's definitely a good sign. Rodman says following the contract, reporting easily identifiable grievances like seniority violations or management bullying. That's a really good one. Claudia says communication. Angela has a great one. Says the contract is followed because of collective power, which is such a good, I think, summary of the goal is that we've got a contract, we're enforcing it. Management knows that we know our contract, and we're enforcing it through the collective power of our coworkers. Christina says knowledge about the contract, so people know the contract. That's an important piece. Anything else that people would add? What would your ideal workplace look like if you had the strongest possible union and the most solidarity between your coworkers, what would that look like on the job? What would that feel like for you? How would you know that you'd accomplished that? Deborah has a good one. The manager consults us on changes. Yeah, that's how you know you've got power in the workplace. This management is so scared to make any changes without the members being on board that they've got to talk to you first. Um, You've got a stress-free workplace. I think that's a really important way to think about, why are we doing all of this in the first place? Because people deserve to work with dignity and without stress and without, all this anxiety about different things that management is going to change on you last second. Um, Rodman says plenty of manpower. So if you're dealing with understaffing in your store, an end to the understaffing crisis. Laura says members feel they can trust you and come to you with issues.
Enforcement of the contract without fear of retaliation.
Yeah, that's really good. So enforcing the contract without fear of retaliation. Yep, Andrea says the same. No hesitation to file grievances or take action on a contract violation. Patrick said happy people and low turnover rates, so higher retention, people staying for longer. And Claudia says unity, which is, I think, a good place to end it. So clearly you guys have such a clear and amazing picture of what your workplace could look like if it was well organized, if members were involved in the union, and if the union was able to leverage real power in your workplace. And so that's really the goal of what we're trying to work towards. And it's not going to happen overnight. A lot of it takes a long time. I am curious, actually, I'm maybe going to cold call on some people. If you were one of the people that said we started out disengaged, but we are now we've got more supporters, could you maybe unmute yourself or type in the chat? How did you do that? Why did that change happen? Or how did you accomplish that change?
Yeah, I'm Frances Smith. I'm in Local 700, Indianapolis, Indiana, and I work for Kroger. In 700, I mean, we had the big contract fight where we voted it down twice, and that started the ball rolling. And when I showed them what we got because we voted it down twice, that piqued more people's interest, and I've just kept them engaged on current issues and helping them with current issues, and then continue enforcing that, hey, this is something that we might be able to change next contract, so let's keep thinking about it so that when they send out the next survey, we're ready.
I think Kristen in the chat was also saying something similar. Kristen, also a member of Indiana Local 700, she said, we shared knowledge with truth. A lot of people were being misinformed and we showed them the correct information. So some of it might just start with member education, talking to coworkers, bringing people into the conversation around, what do we want to see in our contract and what do we want our workplace to look like? How are we going to get there? What's it going to take?
I'm sorry, my name is Claudia Mayorga, and for us, I work for Kaiser, and we had the biggest strike in, I don't know, it's the first time for UFCW 324, and communicating with staff and looking united, that was really important to make us strong. And through our good and bad, I used to tell people, if we don't like each other, it doesn't matter, but we still need to be united and strong. Communication and not do what management does. So if we stay strong, we're going to get a better contract, and nobody's going to cross that line, because then it's going to be a slap in the face for everybody, because you're going to benefit for our profit too, being out there. So we all need to stick together and show management that we're stronger than them. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome, Claudia. I'm curious if you could share a little more about, so what happened after the strike? Like, how do you think your strike affected management, and how did that maybe shift the balance of power in your workplace at Kaiser?
Well, I work for the pharmacy department in the warehouse, so we do the mail orders. But when outside patients wanted their medication, management couldn't handle it. They're all about the numbers, and There were lines waiting 3 hours. Some of the facilities were closing. When the lab work, facility, they shut down too because they're part of us. So it was a big impact. And Kaiser, what about money? We're showing them, and that's when they came back to the table. So that was a huge accomplishment for us, at least for UFCW 324. And when you have support with the union in the office and they're standing there with us, that was a huge impact for us. We were really organized and where we're going to stand. And it wasn't going to be a party. It was going to be united and showing them that this is what we're fighting for. This is for our families' benefits and health benefits. We have really good benefits at Kaiser. We didn't want to lose. We didn't want to have any takeaways. And that's what I was sharing with staff. So it was really, it was an experience. Let's just put it that way.
Awesome. Thank you, Claudia. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to pass it back to Miranda to keep us going with our second lesson.
So the next lesson here is shared problems need shared solutions. Most of the important issues in the workplace affect more than just one person. So the solutions to them should involve more than just that one person too. So our goals are that members know the contract, members stand up to management, members are talking with one another about the union on the job, workers believe that they are the union and act like it, and workers take actions together to win at work. So another interactive question. Please share an example of a time you helped a coworker solve a problem collectively. It'd be really great if people could unmute to share because I'd just love to hear more detail about the situation and how you solved it. So type it in the chat if you'd like, but I'd love to hear some stories.
Hi, I'm Patrick. I'm from local 1995, which is East Tennessee. I'm in Knoxville. Um, about a month or two ago, we're in the middle of a remodel, and we had a crew coming into our store to cut up the floor using a gas-powered concrete saw. Management didn't provide anybody in the store with hearing protection or like dust masks. So it was putting out like 100 decibels, which is, permanent hearing damage within about 30 minutes or less. And a bunch of people were like complaining about it and they didn't really know what to do. So I talked to everybody that I could, and I tried to encourage everybody to email our rep because we didn't have a steward in the store with us, and also contact OSHA. Um, we had to go through this process twice, but we got an OSHA inspector into the store, and they ripped our management a new one for like 3 hours, and then suddenly dust masks and hearing protection magically showed up the next day in the break room.
Yeah, just like magic, it happened, huh? That's crazy. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, so a couple years ago, at my store, a new manager and an existing manager that wasn't very aware of how the store, operated, got together, and they decided to turn a isolated room in our break room that is used by religious members of the store for prayer. That they were going to turn it into a storage closet, and they were about to put a lock on the door. But we were able to collectively walk on the boss essentially and explain like this would be a huge blunder. It would be a huge fiasco. Once you have something like this, to take it away is really, really bad optics. And we convinced them to not put a lock on the door. And it's still used that way to this day.
Yeah, I mean, both situations really speak to the idea that management will do whatever they want unless they're being checked, unless, we're making sure that they know that we're keeping an eye on what they're doing and that our opinion matters and what we think should happen in the workplace matters. I have a story, a quick one. My department that I work in, like I said, it's like made to order food and drinks in the grocery store. And it used to be offices, office space. So when they switched it over to this made to order, they put a bunch of ovens and hot things in there. There's no HVAC, there's no circulation whatsoever. So in the summer, for years now, it's been like I think 6 years since the remodel, it's been hitting 90s, 95 sometimes was like the high. I brought like a little thermometer in because it was getting so hot. People were like getting exhausted and sick. And we ended up going to our LMC, which is Labor Management Committee. We'd go to the Labor Management Committee meetings, and we were doing these monthly, and every single month I'd say it's still 80, 90 degrees. What are we going to do? We need air circulation. We need something. And at first my store director was like, "Oh yeah, we know it's a problem. We're talking about it. We're going to do a remodel of the store probably next summer. We'll resolve it next summer." And I was like, I know that that's been the answer the last 5 summers. So we're going to find a solution now because if you do a remodel next year, great. But right now it's hot. And every single month I brought it up, and every single month I brought it up. And eventually they started bringing in fans. They brought in an AC unit that didn't work. They brought in another AC unit. Eventually, now we have like 3 fans and an AC unit. We have like too much stuff almost, but like just persistence. You have to stay on management. Um, it was all of my coworkers, not just me, sorry, all of my coworkers together staying on them about making sure that they knew this was not okay. And we very well could have went to OSHA, I think, over it, but we didn't, and we did get what we needed out of it. Angela said, I had a coworker who needed to pump at work, and management tried to lie to her about when, where, and how often she could pump. I brought up the laws, and they dedicated her room and left her alone. Right, because yeah, they will just do whatever they want. It's disrespectful. We have to make sure that we stand up for each other. Great job.
Alrighty. Yeah. So notice how all of those stories, they weren't necessarily about filing grievances. You know, a lot of the stuff that we get done is through collective action and through, reasoning with the bosses, like people. Um, but so grievances don't solve everything. And especially in the UFCW, when grievances are primarily handled by union reps, it can be kind of out of our hands. But there's still an important part being a steward. Sometimes you need a grievance. You need to get it in writing. You need an official policy change. So what is a grievance?
I would say like scheduling and seniority, like scheduling outside of your seniority, like somebody who has less seniority above you when you're available. Like you could file a grievance on that.
Mm-hmm. And Christina, so that's an example of a grievance, but what about that problem makes it a grievance as opposed to just like a problem or a different kind of problem, like I don't know, against the law or something?
They're violating like our contract. That's what a grievance is when they violate it. And they violate the contract. They know they're violating it, but they're doing it anyway to see if this coworker or your union steward will let it go or not notice it and see how long they can get away with it.
Frances kind of touched on this in the chat as well. She said, grievance is a contract violation that management can't be talked out of first, which is, I think, a good way to think about it. So it may not always make sense to file a grievance if you can fix the problem at the store level by having a conversation with management or by organizing with your coworkers to show management that you have the power to, take on an issue. And if they then refuse to deal with the issue at the store level, that's when you might file a grievance. But in the most straightforward way, I think Ari and Christina said it, which is management violated the contract. So it's a grievance might be a violation of the contract. It could also be a violation of past practices, even if past practices weren't written down anywhere. So if there was one rule that everyone was following for the longest time, often comes down to dress code. That's like the most common way that this happens, especially if you work in grocery, that there's like a universal dress code standard that everyone is just kind of cool with. Maybe it's that you're allowed to wear pins, you're allowed to wear hoodies. And then one day out of nowhere, management says suddenly, actually, no more hoodies or no more pins. And they discipline someone, they write someone up or do something, send someone home for wearing a hoodie or a pin when they've never done that for, 5 years before. So you could file a grievance on past practice, even if, the right to wear a hoodie isn't written in your contract. Depending on your contract language, it could also include labor law violations, local, state, or federal law violations, or other unfair discipline. But that, again, will depend on your contract. Other kinds of labor law violations might be unfair labor practices instead of grievances. We'll talk about the distinction between the two in the Sunday labor law session.
So typically, if you're a UFCW member, those grievances are filed by the union representatives. In my local right now, we have a really dead fish of a grievance director who doesn't file his grievances. But that's just something that we're dealing with. So right now, when we file our grievances, we can count on that it won't be filed, pretty much. But every union member has a legal right to file one. Of course, these are, they can be slow moving. They have to go, it's a lot of paperwork, and it has to be litigated and cross-checked with the contract and all that. And sometimes it's enforced, that you get a certain wording, and management still finds a way to wiggle around it, or to make make it sort of a Pyrrhic victory. And it can be kind of behind closed doors too. Not everyone finds out when a grievance is issued. It's not like they're going around and saying, like, you can wear hoodies again. You have to spread the word.
We can think about the contract as the floor, not the ceiling. Oftentimes, people will try to push this idea that the contract is the absolute ceiling of what is possible in your workplace. So if there's something that's really bothering everybody in your workplace, but it's not written in the contract, and therefore it might not officially be a grievance. It's not a grievance that you can win at arbitration, but it might be a good organizing issue to get your coworkers involved in trying to fix. And so it's something that you would still want to organize around anyways. And oftentimes when you're filing a grievance, even if it is, covered by the contract, you also want to organize around an issue, because filing the grievance is not going to just like magically wave a wand and get the issue resolved. And it's also not going to build the union if no one knows that the grievance was filed and won. And so there's a job, if you win the grievance, to share the win with everybody. There's all sorts of different ways that you could do that, like, post a picture of the grievance results on social media, share it with your friends. If you get a check for a grievance, which some people do depending on the type of grievance, like unpaid wages or something, buy a pizza for your coworkers with the check and throw a party showing people how to file grievances and explaining what the contract violation was and how other people can win grievances too. Some other ways to think about evaluating a grievance, including, is it a good grievance? And that might be how likely you are to win. Is the person telling the truth? Like, did this actually happen in the way that the person says? That's not a conversation you want to have in front of management. It's definitely a conversation you want to have in caucus or in a side meeting with the member well ahead of time, not during a meeting with management when you're finding out for the first time that actually, there's missing information about this grievance. Has it been grieved before? Has this come up before, and what happened? Does it affect other people? And if so, could it become a group grievance? Could you hold a meeting to bring members together to discuss it? Could it build the union and get more members involved? Is this a consistent and repeated issue? And how can we organize beyond just this one grievance to fix it? And then again, identifying who's the source and who's to blame for this problem, who has the power to fix this problem, and what tactics could we use to address this problem?
So yeah, meeting with management. So who here has had a meeting with management? Have you been called in for disciplinary action, or have you gone forth on your own to talk to management about something?
Yeah, actually, we had a member in the very recent past, probably like 2 or 3 months ago, was brought in to be disciplined for putting the wrong price in for something that they were purchasing when they were at the self-checkout. I didn't sit in on the grievance, but because I'm the steward, it was brought to me after the fact by the person who did sit in on the grievance, or not the grievance, but the corrective action. It was found out that what was happening is that the member was putting in a PLU number for a bulk item, was salad bar. They were putting in what they thought was the right PLU number, and it was the wrong one, so it was charging them less. But that wasn't their fault. That was a Kroger problem. So I informed our rep, and our rep went to another Kroger store and did the exact same thing, and then brought it to management and said, yeah, you need to just throw this out now because this is your problem, not the member's problem. And we won that. That person got their job back instantaneously.
A couple of quick do's and don'ts. Do stick to the facts. Keep your arguments based in facts that can be proven, not just feelings or assumptions. Be clear about the remedy. So don't leave it up to chance. Don't leave it up to management to come up with something. Don't just say like, fix it. State exactly what you think should be done. Be confident and assertive. If you are a steward, this is part of your legal rights as a steward. If you're representing members in a disciplinary meeting, in a wine garden rights meeting, or in some other capacity as a shop steward, in that moment, management is your equal, not your superior. So you can speak to management just as if they were your coworker or, somebody else. Obviously, you should keep it respectful. The law is always going back and forth on whether or not you can curse at management in these meetings. To be on the safe side, you should probably try not to, but there's some case law that protects your right to do that. But in general, you want to maintain that you are an equal to management, that they're in that moment, you don't have to treat them like your boss. You can, fight for the member as hard as you can. Vincent has a good piece of advice in the chat. Says, I was told to let the manager curse first. That's a really good rule of thumb, I think. Don't act alone. Taking up an issue that only you think is important is probably not going to get you very far. So get other coworkers involved early and as much as possible. Don't get sidetracked, stay on topic, and don't let management distract you with other issues, and don't let management set you off. So be assertive, but don't take rage bait. Don't, let them bait you into doing something or saying something really inappropriate that's either going to get the grievance thrown out or get you disciplined or get the member disciplined. In addition to filing grievances, you can also organize marches on the boss. You can organize a button campaign or a t-shirt day. These are some examples from UFCW members from all across the country that have organized campaigns both around their contracts and around workplace issues. So you can, get people to go into the boss's office together to bring forward an issue. You can make buttons or stickers that everyone can wear that raises an issue. Or if, people, either your dress code prevents you from wearing certain things, maybe you can all wear the same color t-shirt, like we see Lori doing on the right. There are a lot of different ways you can demonstrate worker power and unity to the boss, even if you are either not filing a grievance or if you are filing a grievance, but you want to give it a little extra boost. Other things that are kind of important roles for stewards to take on is to share information with coworkers, organize social events, and find small ways to get coworkers involved. Samantha, do you want to share a little about the Thursday meetings that you guys have been doing at your store and kind of how those got started?
Yeah, so it started with a bar night organized by a union level front end manager who just basically said, like, let's rally together and help close the store real quick so we can all go to the bar. And he was actually punished like really severely. Like they scared the living crap out of him, and he no longer participates in the union meetings because of that. Like to this day, he's still scared because of the retribution that he faced during that time. But at that point, I took over the bar nights, and then eventually a lot of us stopped drinking, and the economy got worse, and we can't all afford a night going out. But what I decided to do is like, let's cook a big meal. Like, let's cook a big pot of chili or a big pot of macaroni or barbecue up some ribs, something that can feed a lot of people. I'm from a family of 15. So I know about feeding a lot of people cheaply. So basically, we pool our money together. We do shopping before we close the store, and we just share a meal. And there's no structure to the meeting. It's not like we're taking notes or holding minutes, but the problems at work find their way to getting discussed. Like we all have this thing in common where we have the same, boss, and we have the same problems, and we hear about problems that maybe like somebody was cornered, or something that we didn't wouldn't hear about if we didn't talk outside of work. If people are, not getting their hours, or not getting a raise that everyone else is getting, stuff like that. And it makes it really easy to identify the problems, and it's a good tool to have as a shop steward, because I've got my finger on the pulse of the store. So this is just like the people that close the store. Some days, like some big holidays, we have like 14 people we've had before. And but usually it's just like 9, 8 people. And it's nice to have something in that week to get to look forward to, and kind of have a group therapy session and eat some good food, and just unwind about work, because you can't always talk with the people in your life about work and they understand, but your coworkers, that they know exactly what you're going through.
I was wondering, Samantha, if you could also share a little bit about how you have been trying to kind of recruit people from other departments in your store to start acting as stewards, even if they don't have the official title of steward. So what has that process looked like for you, and what qualities are you looking for when you're looking for workplace leaders?
Yeah, it's really important that you're not doing this job alone, I think. I mean, I've been the only shop steward at my store for pretty much 7 years. We had one other guy at one point, but he wasn't very active. He was a shop steward in name only. So with myself being kind of split up with the election, I've been looking for people to train in other departments. And really, my ultimate goal is to have someone in every department on every shift. So if you're working mornings, you have somebody in your department that is there in mornings and understands what mornings are like, that you can go to. And you're not talking to somebody that has never done your job. I've done a lot of jobs in the store, so I can understand a lot, but I can be spread pretty thin. But it's important to look, I think, for people that are natural leaders, like that earlier diagram said, but also people that can quietly listen and take in information. People that aren't gossiping or causing, you don't want to have the person that is like the cause of drama in a department be a shop steward. Although sometimes the loudest person in the room can draw your attention. It might be the only person you know from that department or that shift. So it's good to visit the store at times that you're not usually there, and get a sense of the social cohesion, and ask the person like, hey, would you be interested in helping us out? I mean, on one hand, it's going to put a target on your back with management, but on the other hand, they can't, their retaliation is noted, because they can't be retaliating against you for being a steward. You got to be a good worker, obviously. A lot of people are. I mean, we work with a lot of great and intelligent and hardworking people that are not going to run afoul of management for the work that they're doing. Right now, I've got somebody in the fuel department. I've got pretty much somebody in every department, but I'm still working on getting every shift.
Not. Oh, it says the new assistant store manager has been transferred to your store. They've started to micromanage the members and get aggressive and rude when things aren't done exactly as said. Your coworkers say they wish they could say something, but they're afraid. Is it a grievance? What should you do? I, as steward, and not caring if people like me, and feeling secure that I'm not going to get fired, I definitely would say something to him, be like, hey, you can't do this. You can't treat people like this. But we did agree it's not really a grievance at this point, but they should be talked to. But if somebody's like harassing you or saying extremely inappropriate things, then yes, report that and file a grievance.
Yeah. And it's an organizing opportunity to follow the letter of what they're saying, and not give them even a little bit more. never go above and beyond for a manager that's like that, and talking to the superstars in that department and saying like, hey, work with us and don't do exceptional work for this manager that's gonna,
Yeah.
you know.
So in our group, we talked about noticing a much heavier presence of non-union merchandisers, which in Indiana, they're called Retail Odyssey. But also we just learned that where Samantha is with Fred Meyer's, Instacart has been picking their click list or pickup orders and dropping them off at the door. And that I was just texting Christina about it, and I'm like, that's not okay. She said there's even an option where Instacart can pick it up and then they still take it out. So is this a grievance? 100% yes. Take pictures, document, keep track of hours if you can. Like, take a picture of your schedule every week and show, like, hey, we were using 200 hours. Now we're using 160 since this Instacart shit.
I think this is a kind of an example of contract slippage where our union's unwillingness to enforce this is a really bad sign for what's in the next contract. Of are they going to allow vendors more leeway? And it's something that if we don't act on and show like, hey, we're upset about this, this isn't okay, they're going to get away with it, and it's going to make its way into the contract. Because clearly right now they are not moving.
A couple of different people shared that they had gotten some payouts from filing and winning grievances on non-bargaining unit members taking union work. Does anyone, maybe especially if it's someone we haven't heard from on the call tonight, want to share a story of a time if you've won a payout or gotten a payout from winning a grievance?
I've got 3 of these grievances going right now, actually, of management and third party doing bargaining unit work. I've filed almost a dozen in the past 2 years, and I've yet to lose one because, you just got to document who's doing what and when, take pictures, and every single one I get a payout. The biggest one we got was last December. We claimed over 200 hours. And we got 150 paid out because we, kind of bargained down a little bit. This is our work; it's not their work, and we have to hold them accountable for this because the only way that Kroger or any company, will change anything or give more hours or make a full-time bid or something like that is if they have to pay money. Sometimes we just claim 25 hours or something like that, and we'll get a few $100s, or sometimes it's 150 hours, and it's a couple $1,000s altogether. But, we've just got to file these grievances. They're so easy to win, and you get such a return on it, especially when you get to go to, somebody that's getting the payout and be like, hey, I filed this grievance, da 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 da. You're getting $350. They're just over the fucking moon about it.
Yeah, I've actually had 3 of my part-timers in the front store get payouts because we have a management exclusion clause, only X amount of managers in the store. And my new manager has a favorite old manager as well, operations manager. And so he would bring her in the store. So in the system, she is scheduled in the store, but on paper, she is not. Luckily, I have my front store people are telling me this because I don't understand why he needs to have 6 managers working in 1 week in my store. And so we let that go on for a couple of times. And yeah, they all got paid out. All my part-timers did because they were not maxed out in hours. And you're right, it is very simple. Eventually, at least in this case, this grievance went through quickly. Yeah, you need to have your evidence backed up. And they got their payout and they were very happy.
I want to shout out Ari in the chat, said it was recently paid out for 45 hours for management working union work in the bakery. 45 hours is that's like a whole paycheck. It's like a week's, more than a week's worth of work. That's awesome. You can order a copy of our newsletter to share with your coworkers at .ly/essential voice. It's also available on our website, ew4d.org. These are good ways to keep your coworkers updated on things that are happening, not just in your local, but also in the UFCW across the country. You can hear stories from organizing victories of members just like you all across the country. And a reminder that anywhere you can share a flyer for something like Girl Scout cookies or a community event, you can also share a copy of our newsletter. Make sure that you're in non-work areas and on non-work time when you're distributing it. And then finally, Essential Workers for Democracy is a membership-based organization. So our trainings and all of our educational resources are always going to be 100% free and open to any union member that wants to access them. But we do base ourselves on a membership structure. So if you want to be a dues-paying member of Essential Workers for Democracy, you can join and sign up to start paying dues at ew4d.org/join. Dues are $30 a year for regular membership and $15 for low-income or part-timers. And regardless of what level you sign up at, you will also get a free membership packet with more information about EWD, a membership card, and $10 off an EWD t-shirt, which you can buy in our store.